Derek Wilson here with Variom Racing, able to catch up with Matt Lindle coming off the OMA race in Newark, Missouri. Now, Matt, you and I talked, I think, yesterday. However, we were talking about race season. I haven't heard the story of the race this weekend, and I understand there is quite the story. So, Stardust, take us wherever you want to take us from, Matt.
All right. Yeah, we went down to, me and my mom and girlfriend went down to Newark, running the independent cycles quad at all the OMAs this season, and had a really good start to the season with round 1 and round 2, taking the win at both of those, and having a good time. Put on some good tracks so far this year, the OMA has, and everything's worked pretty good. However, round 3 over the weekend, not so good. Had a little bit of a struggle. Mid-pack start, worked my way up into second pretty quickly and sat in second, just riding behind for a while, and racing with the top, I think the top 4 of us were close for the first few laps, racing back and forth, and then we kind of separated ourselves a little bit. 1 and 2 did, and I ended up getting into the lead the same lap that I was coming into pit. And so I stopped and pitted, and just a little bit longer of a stop. Had to adjust my steering stabilizer. It was way out of adjustment for my liking, in the little higher speed track. So I had to tweak it a little bit. So got going again, back in second at that point, and closed back in on first place pretty quickly. But that same lap, I had problems with the four-wheeler. Not running.
What lap are we on at this point? Are we on like lap 3 or 5, Matt?
I think we ran close to 10. Probably it was a shorter course. So we're probably right about the midway point. I pitted at, I believe, the midway point. So however many laps there was, it was really close to the hour mark when I pitted. So that same lap that I pitted, I was back, got pushed back to second with my pit. But I caught back up to his bumper, and then the four-wheeler about, I would say, halfway through that lap started missing just a little bit, and then it died shortly after, and it wouldn't fire. And so I took the seat off. It was a really dusty race, and thought, well, maybe the air filter's just extremely clogged or something like that happened. That wasn't the case. It was fine, just normal, dirty, nothing extreme. And then I tried the gas tank vent. I've had issues with those before, not letting the gas tank breathe. And so I tried that, and that was not a problem. And still wouldn't fire. Finally got it to fire and died again. I ended up turning the idle way up and getting it to start, and just left the idle really high and was able to keep it running then. And so I took off and started trying to close back in on second place, because through all that I ended up getting pushed back to third, and that incident probably cost me, I'm just guessing, but 1.5 to 2 minutes by the time I finally got it all going again. So I closed back in on second place really quickly, got him past before I even made it to the start finish for the next lap. So then I'm trying to work my way back up. I think it was 1:40 or 1:50 to first place. Trying to work my way back up to him, and I start closing in on him. I make one lap, close in on him pretty significantly, and then going down the hill, my rear brakes just lock up, and at the time I didn't know it was the rear brakes, but it just locked up. Rear tires skidding. They had no idea what happened. Didn't hit anything, nothing out of the ordinary, just going down the hill.
At that point, it could have been a number of different things, like the chain getting bound up, or the transmission, locking up, the motor locking up. I guess it was still running, but so you really didn't know, did you?
No, and my first thought was transmission, because the bike has a brand new transmission in it. And so I thought, well, maybe something came loose or wasn't assembled correctly, but that wasn't the case. It was the transmission worked fine, and jumped off and trying to figure out what the deal was. The chain was still on, so it wasn't that, and like you said, the bike was still running, and I was confused. Well, then I ended up seeing the rear rotor was all mangled up and caught in the caliper, so it wasn't allowing it to spin. I couldn't get it broke free. I tried busting the rest of the rotor off so it would go, but I couldn't get it to break off. I couldn't find anything big enough or strong enough to break it the rest of the way off. It was still attached pretty well. So I'm on a hill, and I get it pushed down the hill with the rear brake skidding enough to get it in the open a little bit, so I could evaluate it a little more, maybe try and find somebody to help me out. Well, there was a lady there on a little pit bike, and she ran to the pits to get me a wrench so I could take the caliper off so I could continue to ride. And just shortly after she left, maybe a minute after she left, Bud, Riley's dad, came by in his 4-wheel drive, and he had pliers on him, so we took the pliers and I got the bolts loose and out, and he took the last bolt out for me while I was putting my helmet and everything back on, and as soon as he got it off, so I took off, just try and salvage what I could. By that time I was back, I believe, in 4th place.
Wow.
And this whole ordeal cost minutes. I mean, it had to be at least 5 to 6, 7.
Let me ask you a question. So as a racer, I've been in that situation where, in fact, last I was here, I was in a situation where I couldn't get my quad started, and I was just scrambling for whatever it could be, seat off, checking the wires, or, making sure the switch is on, and just anything and everything. It was kind of a panic mode. Being a veteran, were you in panic mode, or because it almost seems like the faster you try to go, the slower you actually make progress? What was your mindset at that point in time?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It seems like that. The more you scramble and the faster you try and be, the slower it is. I was relatively calm at that point. I kind of thought I'm really screwed for a while, to be honest. I just kind of thought it was done and over with. At least as far as any sort of point salvaging, I figured I was going to go at least a lap down by the time the lady got back with a wrench. I mean, she had a ways to ride up and get her in, come back and everything. So I wasn't too scrambling. I was just sitting there in frustration. I mean, it was valuable points, wanting to win. I mean, I'm always wanting to win no matter what or where I'm racing. And it was frustrating. I was feeling good and just getting to the second half of the race, just when I start to actually get comfortable and really start riding the way I usually can. So it was more frustration than anything. So
you got the caliper off completely?
Yes, we just took the brake line off and let it dangle, and took the 2 bolts out to get the rear caliper off. Took it off. Bud took it back to the trailer for me and left it there, and I just took off with no brakes. And
so now you got no rear brakes. I mean, there's no question about it. You have absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's just an open line. It goes to nowhere.
Wow.
So, yeah, no rear brakes, and which, I mean, it's
4th place, right?
Yep, I believe 4th place. And it's a big deal for trying to ride at a really high level, like trying to catch up to those guys, but I'm more than capable of riding without the rear brakes to salvage some points. So I went out and I was frustrated, like I said. So I rode too hard for a lap, and it cost me because I ended up overheating the front brakes, and I lost them completely for about half a lap, which was very, very sketchy, not having brakes. And when I say any brakes, I mean I had nothing. They did absolutely nothing. So it was just kind of cruising around until they cooled down enough to come back. And then I just played it smart and stayed easy on the brakes and smooth, and just so I could continue to ride, just get all the laps completed, not go a lap down. And it paid off because Brian Halsey, he had a mechanical issue with the lower ball joint breaking on him. Thankfully he's all right, because the lower ball joint at a fast we were at could be very, very dangerous. But he was just fine. He said it was a little squirrely, but he said he held on to it.
Wow.
So he was out of the race. So then that defaulted me to 3rd place. and 2 laps to go. So Shay's leading by a huge margin, and Riley's in second place, and I am 4 minutes behind Riley. And by some miracle, Riley had problems with his thumb throttle, the nut coming loose in his throttle, the actual thumb part of the throttle falling out of it. So he had to stop and tighten that, which allowed me to close up that whole 4 minutes. So the last lap I was only 40 seconds behind him, and I just pushed hard enough that I was able to get...
Without brakes.
Was able to push hard enough to get him past before we crossed the line and get second place. It was, more than anything, it was luck. They got me in second place. There had nothing to do with skill. I mean, I should have really been fourth place. It was luck with the other guys having issues too, is what caused me to get up there in second place.
Well, I think I'll go ahead and remind you how I feel about luck is, I always wish you all the luck you deserve. Whether you want to accept that or not, that's how I feel about it. What a wild chain of events. I'd love to go back and even just and recover them real quick. So, also do start, jumped into second. At that point, the quad lost power, right? That was the first kind of hiccup?
Yeah, right after the pit. It sputtered a few times, and then the one time it sputtered and never came back. It just sputtered till it died.
And you turned the idle up to make it run. Did you ever get to the bottom of why that was?
I still do not know. I have not heard back as to if he's found anything why it's doing that. So I don't know yet. It was odd to me why it sputtered like that and died and wouldn't fire. But then once I cranked the idle up, I mean, I cranked it up a lot. It had to be idling at probably close to 5,000 RPMs. I mean, it was idled way up, which in itself was a little bit of a handful once I got going.
With no brakes. So mentioning no brakes, then your back brakes foul out on you, and you have to find a way to... You said the rotor was broke. Was it broke just from riding? Did we hit some rocks and break? Was it missing a bolt or two? What made that rotor break, do you know?
I have no clue. It was
that's kind of fluke, isn't it?
There was nothing. I mean, I looked back up the hill that I came down. I don't remember even prior in laps hitting anything. I have run an RJR skid plate, which is extremely tough, and it's completely intact. Nothing wrong with it at the end of the race. Still there.
Strange.
No bends or dents or breaks or anything in it. And so the only thing I can think is it was a wave rotor, and those wave rotors are designed for MX, and they're
not for that kind of abuse, huh? For that longevity.
Yeah, they're supposed to stay cooler because they're usually slotted, not just drilled. They don't. They're usually meant for MX and stay a little cooler. And my only thought is it's used. It's been used quite a few races. It's been heated up and cooled down, and it got some cracks in it because there's less surface area to it. I mean, with the slots and the waves, and it really, because it almost looked like it shattered. It kind of,
wow.
When I say it was mangled up, it wasn't just broke and one chunk missing or anything. I mean, it was mangled up, bent and broke in like 5 or 6 different places. It was all messed up. So something malfunctioned with the rotor itself, because the hill I was on, there was no rocks, no stumps, nothing. It was just dirt, just normal.
Well, I've got to tell you, this mental image I've got, it might not be funny to you. So you jump off this quad, you look at the rotor smashed, and the rotor's trashed, and you say you're looking for something to break it with, right? So you walk around the woods, like, back and forth real quick, looking for a big old rock or a stick. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, my first thought was find a big rock, and I'm just going to bust it off.
You caveman, huh?
And I couldn't find anything, and so I was trying to kick it and everything, and it wasn't budging, so it was still intact enough. And
during this time, you're getting passed, right? Obviously, 2 people come by you. in your class, but there's probably other guys that you had just passed also coming by you, and they're thinking, wow, man, Lindle's got a problem, right?
Yep. Yeah, actually, multiple guys slowed up and made sure I was all right.
That's cool.
And everything. But yeah, there was plenty of people that went by. That was the frustrating part, watching the people in my class go by. And
certainly Riley's dad. Did you say his name was Bud?
Yes.
And the lady that helped you, do you know who that was at all?
I actually do not.
Okay, well, whoever you are, thank you from me, and thanks from Matt, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I made sure and gave a big thanks to Bud. He helped me out tremendously. I would have sat there for a lot longer, probably at least double the time if he wouldn't have came along and had some pliers on him.
You know, just like I think we talk in every interview, and especially, you know, the young racers out there, and you know, I've been through some myself. Matt, you and I have both had the similarities of losing a foot peg in a race. That's not cool. That's not fun. But I think you'll agree with me, Matt. And I'm not putting down any other racers out there, but there's a lot to do with heart in racing. You know, mechanicals have to be there. Your physical fitness have to be there. There's no doubt. You have to have heart to get through it. And many of people, including myself, and maybe you even considered for a minute, Matt, was sitting on the seat and just being angry and upset. Instead, you went looking for a rock. You know, instead you went looking for a stick, looking for a way to overcome. That is part of the culture that we try is just overcome. I mean, you're thinking about that at the time. You're thinking about sitting down, just being pissed off, Matt.
I don't. That's I've been kind of hardwired that way since I was a little kid. I think I get it from my dad and the work ethic that he has. Just no matter what, it's
find a way.
It's pretty rare for me to be that way. My first thought is especially in the racing, is how can I finish? How can I finish? I don't care about anything else. I want to finish it. Even if I'm not in first place, if I'm in 5th or 20th, finish the race every single lap. The kid who won, I want to do the same amount of laps as him, even if I'm 10, 20 minutes behind.
That's certainly something the top tier, you know, not even athletes, but I think career people find success in that rather than find the excuses to quit, they find the solutions to finish. Congrats, Matt. That's incredible. You also lost your front brakes and had the patience and the know, and you knew enough through experience that your front brakes would cool down. You know, without that kind of experience, you might have just thought your front brakes were gone, but you knew that because obviously I think you probably experienced that before, haven't you?
I've overheated brakes many times. I've had really good luck with the new GLANN products that I have on my personal quad, but I have overheated brakes over the years plenty. So I kind of figured after I calmed down at the first scare that when I found out the front brakes were gone was a little bit of a scare, but I calmed down from that a little bit. I knew they'd come back as long as I just had to keep riding real slow so I didn't end up hurt or anything, and they came back shortly after. So
bring us to the checker flag. You know, in other interviews we talk about your finish. We talk about physical fitness. Sometimes that's off. Sometimes the quad is just off. The setup is off. You know, you had a broken frame. I think he explained it as like riding a noodle, which I thought was great. So you come to this finish line and a drastic relief again to make it there.
Definitely a surprise and relief that I finished in all the laps and that I finished that well with the problems. But more than anything was just a lot of frustration. I'm hard enough on myself, and when mechanical things happen, it's just absolutely unacceptable to me. For myself, for anything to happen it doesn't matter what I'm riding or doing. If I'm going to fail, if I'm not going to win, if I'm not going to be up to par on that day, I want it to be my own fault, not because the machine didn't finish or it didn't make it or it had problems. I want to honestly be beat straight up. I want to have myself be the problem. And so it's frustrating. And I mean, it happens to every racer. Nobody nobody's perfect. You don't ever.
And that's in all types of racing. You know, I think that's important. All types of racing.
There's no racing or really any sport that everything's going to go perfect for your entire career or even the entire year or anything like that. But it's just it's easier pill for me to swallow when I fail myself more than the machine fails me. And at least then I know what I got to work on, and I can be hard on myself. It's hard to be hard on a machine because they don't have feelings, they don't have things that you don't do to them. So
that's incredible results with some outrageous chain of events. Chain of events, numerous ones for yourself, but other people had. That's just a lot of irony in that race with Riley and Halsey having issues.
Yep.
So it's an incredible story, but it's an even more incredible finish, Matt. That's who Matt Lindle is. You know, I've said it before. If you don't know who Matt Lindle is, you should now. I do believe that, Matt Lindle does the right things. He does the right things a week before the race. He does them 3 days before the race, 2 days before the race. Matt is not out treating his body wrong. Matt is treating his body right. And it shows. On the way up, Matt. Next level, go fast. Really appreciate what you're doing, and, man, keep it up.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it all the help and support from you and everybody else out there. It's been fun so far this year, and looking forward to the rest of it.
We're loving the ride. Thanks for the time, Matt. Thanks to Matt's family. Huge help. Matt can't do this without his family. They are tremendous, and Matt, your family has become part of my family, and I really like that too.
Yeah, they're great. They'll pretty much do anything for me and have supported my racing since the beginning, and I'm pretty confident we'll continue to until I decide to hang it up.
Awesome. We will try to catch up with you in your next upcoming race, and best of luck. I don't think we need to tell you, but keep yourself healthy.